Dr. Caitlin is out. So we're going to talk about something that's just really near and dear to my heart, and I think for you too, Sonya, is that is really brain health for kids. And I've got 2 teens, so I'm seeing a lot of it, of what's going on in the teen world. And I know your kids are a little younger. We've got a whole epidemic of kids growing up with learning disabilities, and I would say some misdiagnosis. And then what I see in the teen world is just ridiculous, the level of anxiety that these kids are going through. So what I'd love to chat about today is really like, we've got parents, moms of all different age ranges, but what could we, if we looked at from pregnancy all the way through the teen years, like what are some strategies that we can start to teach people on how they can really help nourish the health of their child's brain? Because it's so important, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And I think what you said is key, is really looking at it from pregnancy and even beyond, before, and then, the children, because it starts before. Like I always educate my pregnant moms that, the cord that's getting produced when you get pregnant, it's taking your nutritional status from 6 months prior. So conception may have happened then, but it started 6 months before you even got pregnant. So if you think about that, you want to make sure mom is detoxified. Mom is looking at her nutritional status, so the foundation that the child gets is balanced. Yeah. Would you agree? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what people need to really take home and understand first is that the world we're living in right now is more toxic than ever before.
Yeah.
So if I was going to go get pregnant right now and start the whole family thing over again, it's not, you're just dealing with a different level of toxic exposure. So what may not seem routine to most pregnant moms yet, I think you and I, and Caitlin would probably agree, are hoping that at some point will become routine, that every mom detoxifies before they get pregnant. Like
absolutely.
That is probably the most important piece of this whole puzzle of everything that we, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, because often I hear, oh, well, we were fine. We ate this way, we did this, we're fine, even though, we're not fine. It depends on what your definition of fine is.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to be fine. I want to thrive. Yeah. So it's really, I think it is at some point, one day I do wish that happens, that it just becomes routine. Okay, thinking about getting pregnant, I know I need to go in, I need to get detoxified, I need to, figure out what's going on in my body. And hopefully people are doing that just from the get-go anyways. But to be really specific before even thinking about getting pregnant.
Yeah, and I like what you said. Let's give parameters like 6 months before conception. If we could really paint a new picture for the world, I would love to see that people are doing some type of thorough detoxing. And heavy metals are probably the most important, because those are generational and getting passed down. Do you have a pre-pregnancy detox that you do?
Well, now I'm doing TCD with most of my, but absolutely. I actually get them to come in a year before. So I start checking their hormones, or I start checking, whatever it is that we need to look at, heavy metals and whatnot. And then, we start detoxifying them. And, foundational stuff with food. Because if you get a mom started on looking at what she's eating, then what she's going to be feeding the child is going to be very similar. So getting them eating organic, changing up what they're buying and what they're putting in their bodies. I find it's more educational, I find, in those, that beginning year, and really getting her set up to feel healthy and strong. And the way I frame it is like, if you go into the pregnancy depleted, you're coming out of the pregnancy even more depleted. Yep. Because let's face it, they're little parasites, right?
Yeah, right.
They take everything.
You're passing your depletion on to your child.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's what people don't realize. That this is, you as a mom, mothering starts the moment of conception.
Yeah, absolutely.
From a toxic level. So
and I'm a perfect example. Like I feed my kids really well from day one. I've done it all right. Like no sugar, no gluten, no dairy. They weren't vaccinated. They've not once had any form of medication in their body. And my heavy metals are high. So I knew my oldest, just looking at the way he was healing and bruises and stuff, I knew he was iron deficient. So I knew, lead, that's coming from that.
Cool.
And just seeing my other one too, like he had like some eczema on his face, and okay, there's something else going on. So you can be doing all these right things, but not knowing, like you said, that generational stuff that got passed down and these hidden toxicities that we may not be aware of and not be educated on can still be there, creating, you know, disbalances for them or imbalances for them.
Yeah, and I think that's so I think that's probably the key point to hammer home is that if you're about to have a second child or a third child, and you haven't had a child, you really want to look at a thorough detox so you can end some of these generational toxins. Then you got to go and you got to look at, okay, let's look at pregnancy. You know, what is it that's damaging the fetus, or what kind of toxins are accumulating in pregnancy? And I have to say, the first thing I think of is the flu shot.
And that's really pushed on pregnant women to get the flu shot. And I think what people aren't aware of, because I know that whole thimerosal thing, they think, oh, they've taken the mercury out, but the flu shot isn't considered an infant shot. So there's still thimerosal in it.
That's right.
So there's no awareness around that. And so I don't know if we talked about this before, but there was a study where they did autopsies on children that were stillborn, that didn't make it full term, and they did an autopsy on the brain, and they actually saw mercury levels in there, and that comes from mom.
It comes from mom. That's great. That this is where I get irate, because I'm like, they push that flu shot on pregnant moms so much. And yet I don't, these are I think they're well-intending doctors and nurses, but they haven't done their research.
Absolutely.
So it's really, I think if you get pushback from your OB, or bring them the research. You could just Google flu shots and miscarriages, and you'll see there's a lot of studies out there.
So what are some of your strategies in pregnancy? Like, what are some things that women can do as, baby's brain's developing in those first, even first couple of weeks, right? There's so much happening in the little person, little seed. So what are some things that they can do?
So I just had a really fun nutritional consult with a woman who's about to have who's 8 weeks pregnant with her third child. And she wanted to sit down and talk about microbiome, and she wanted to talk about the generational toxicity issue. Well, she's 8 weeks pregnant, so there's not really anything we can do for detoxing at this point. So we just really came up with some solid plans for like food she could be eating, ways to really build her microbiome up. We talked about the chemicals in her house and things like that. So so I think to answer your question, is that at that point, I think of pregnancy, there are like two things to really think about. One is that the blood-brain barrier that protects the brain is not fully formed until your child is 7. So any toxins that you come in contact with as the pregnant mom is going right into that brain. So the most obvious things are like, what are you putting on your skin? Are you clear that you're putting non-toxic stuff on your skin? Are you the cleaners, the things you're breathing in? Are you looking at your cleaning, your laundry detergent, the things, the detergents you use in your dishwashing soap, like the things that you're coming in contact with every day, those will start to accumulate. Are you eating organic? That's big. That's a really big one.
Or mold in the environment. I find that a huge one too.
Well, and those are great, because once you tap into the awareness, once you have that awareness of the toxins in your environment, it's like what do they say? A mind that opens up is like an umbrella. You won't ever forget it. You got it now, and you can teach your kids that. So toxins wise, that's what we do. And then work with the microbiome. But tell me what do you do toxins wise?
It's the same, because pregnancy, like you said, there's nothing really to do when it comes to detoxification. So it's really about educating on, eating organic. That's probably one of the biggest things. And then, like you said, all the environmental stuff, like don't dye your hair, right? Simple things that people do just on the regular that they don't even think about, just creating awareness around that. And like you said, as soon as there's awareness, then they have more questions about, okay, how do I make this a lifestyle shift? Because it doesn't just end when the baby comes out, because now you may be nursing. Right. And now you're creating an environment for the baby. And I think it is when women are pregnant that they are more aware of these things, because they realize there's this little being coming out from the womb that's been protected and into the world that's quite toxic. And, you know, from noise to light to the toxins in our environment, everything. So they want to protect their child. And then this is like the perfect time to teach and educate on what they can do.
And, you know, I was thinking about it as you were talking, there's, you know, like a 3-year window there where detoxing is very difficult to do, you know, from conception, really, if you're nursing all the way through 2 years, there's really no detoxing that can happen, which I can't emphasize enough why you want to detox before you get pregnant, because you can't do it in that window. So,
absolutely.
And I don't know if you guys have seen on your heavy metal test, we'll see people who grew up in like households where with smoke. So secondhand smoke is a big one. And even air pollution is a whole nother, you know, has to be thought about.
Absolutely.
So toxins are big. And then I think the other important one is the microbiome. How do you feed, you know, I think it's a great time that, since you can't detox when you're pregnant, you can build a really healthy microbiome. You can actually start, you know, you can change your toothpaste, you can put the skin colonizer on your the probiotic lotion.
You could be eating more fermented foods.
So really being conscious, that was what I sat down with this woman and I was like, oh my God, you have almost 9 months and this baby's going to come out. And if you work in 9 months on your microbiome, like what a gift you've just given your child now when the child.
I mean, that's the foundation. That's everything. And like most people are walking around with digestive issues. Right. So if we can help them with that. And like you said, if they're coming in when they're pregnant, just educating them on how to create that diversity again in their microbiome. Perfect gift.
And I think just so people know that the microbiome is your immune system and it's neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters are really what allow the brain to be healthy and function normally. So it's
and this is such a big topic too, because when you go back to look at, how was mom born, right? Was she a cesarean baby? Was she breastfed? Did she get that right foundation of the microbiome too? Because that essentially is what's going to get passed down to the child as well. So it's a big topic that we could probably do a whole other podcast on.
But so important, like you know, if you stop and you look at how sick our children are, and you actually break it down to these little pieces, you start to see it's all these little pieces that have added up. So just in the short period of time we've been talking about this, it's like toxins, microbiome, and then you've got, you know, like the C-section rate is gone through the roof, which you want to talk
1 in 3. It's 1 in 3 births. And, you know, for me specifically, I was a cesarean baby. And I was. So my mom tried. So I did at least got, you know, some of those hormones. So she tried and then it didn't go that way. And I was a C-section baby. And at that time she was told, once you have one, all your others have to be cesarean. For me, my first birth also ended up in a C-section with Cayenne. And the second one, though, I did at home. I had a VBAC at home.
So congratulations.
And so, but I can see the difference in the two kids in their vitality. So my firstborn, because he was cesarean, he's way more susceptible in his lungs. So I really made sure after he was born, lots of skin to skin, breastfed him till he was 2 years old. And I'm always very careful about what he's eating and doing all these things. And still now, you know, we started noticing a little bit of eczema. Like there's still those things that come up. And he is, like I said, more susceptible in his lungs. So constant work on detoxifying him and making sure he's getting the right tools for his microbiome. Whereas the second one gets sick one day, he's fine the next day. Huge difference in the vitality. And the second one was born at home, no problem, few hours, just completely different scenario.
Wow. And so will he do fermented foods, and you've kind of got him accustomed to that stuff?
Oh yeah, they love fermented foods. I have those weird kids. They like those kinds of things, you know. They love sauerkraut, love kimchi, love anything fermented. So I've been lucky enough with that. I gave them probiotics, different ones, you know, at different stages, because I think people get stuck on like one strain and they keep giving the same one over and over again. So I've been very conscious of doing that. I was taking different things too, making sure he's getting stuff through the breast milk as well. So that was kind of how I kind of re-inoculated his system.
Right. And you still see a difference. That's amazing.
Oh, still, yeah. And, you know, like I was telling you earlier in our messages, I did their O test.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I did both their O tests. So now Kyan, he's 6. I've been working on him for about 6 years. Soren is 3. And the younger one, even though he wasn't a cesarean, he is a carboholic, you know, and his demeanor and just the way he responds to life, very different than the first, very different personalities. But we always knew there was something else. Like Nick and I could always pick, you know, mother's intuition too. It's like, you know, there's something deeper going on. And so I did both their tests. So kind of similar. They both had high fungal markers, arabinose specifically, but Kyan's is like a quarter higher than it should be, whereas Soren's is like 3/4.
Interesting.
So a lot higher. Soren's, the younger one, his bacterial marker, one of them was high.
Okay.
Both deficient in glutathione, both deficient in vitamin C, a little bit of deficiency of B6. Mitochondrial markers were good. Oxalates were high. So when I looked at this, when I saw their tests, I'm like, okay, these are kids that are doing it right. You know, they're not eating sugar.
Right.
Well, 95% of the time they're not eating sugar. I mean, when they're out now at birthday parties, it's a bit of a battle, but it's different when they're out. Like barely any gluten, barely dairy. Like, you know, I'm doing the right things, but this is what's showing up on their test. I'm like, so imagine if I had vaccinated them. Imagine if I had given them Tylenol from day one, or, you know, these things that we don't really think about. I just wonder what their personalities would be like. I wonder how Kyan's learning would be like right now in school. So I wonder those things, because looking at this test, it's telling me that that's what would have happened. Yeah. You know, it's indicating that they would have had some trouble. Yeah.
Do you use the Genova one, or which one do you use?
I use Great Plains.
Oh, Great Plains. Okay.
Yeah.
And just for you guys that are listening, it's a really simple urine test. It's really easy to do.
So easy. First morning urine, and that's it. Yeah.
And then it's out the door. It's so nice.
Yeah. So I'm actually really excited I'm doing the TCD with them. I'm just waiting for some things to come in. I'm going to do it for 3 months, and then I'm going to retest them both and see how things shift.
Are you going to do liquid, or can they swallow pills?
No, I'm going to do mostly liquid, and then bind and everything I will just open up and give to them. But
awesome. That's awesome.
So I'm excited that I have the tools, right?
Right. Yeah. Which is what, you know, I think this topic can be hard as a mother to hear, because when you hear of all these things that you're not doing, then the mommy guilt comes in.
Oh my goodness. You should have seen my mommy guilt when I saw the O test. I was like, oh, it's my lead. It's my mercury. You know, it's my microbiome that did that. And I remember with my youngest, even when I was pregnant, even though I didn't have sugar, I felt like a bag of candida. Like, you know what? I felt yeasty. And I knew when he came out, he was like that too. I was like, oh, that's me. And totally the mommy guilt. So this isn't about creating mommy guilt, but it's just awareness, and that knowing that there's always a solution.
Yeah.
It's always something that we can do and change today.
Yeah. And I think when you're talking about brain function, what I've noticed with parents is that people don't tend to think about the nutrition and detox piece of brain function. They think environment, he must be in the wrong class, or maybe there's too much stress, or what I see at the teenage level is, maybe it's social media.
Right.
And what I would love to change the conversation to, what about those foundational pieces? What about, you know, are they eating right? Are you detoxing them? Like, are you feeding their microbiome? Like, these are things that I want to start this conversation with parents, and they're very empowering. There's no mommy guilt with that. It's like, let's implement some of this stuff in.
Yeah. An experiment I get some of the parents to do that come in. I'm like, okay, 2 weeks. Like 2 weeks isn't hard. 2 weeks, let's get rid of some sugars. Let's get rid of some gluten. Let's get rid of some dairy. And then bring it back in one by one. See their behavior. See what happens. Like I know with my children, if they've had too much gluten, they're irritable, just like I am.
Yep.
Then you start to notice changes in them.
Yeah.
But if they're, from day one getting fed a certain way, you're not going to notice those things because that seems to be the normal.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And so let's take this age range, like from 0 to like before the school years, before preschool, what are some of the things that I know that I see in my practice are like ear infections and
eczema.
Any kind of skin problem, and probably digestion would be the other one, and lack of sleep.
Yes. Yeah, those are big. Constipation's a big one that I see, like you said, digestive issues. Yeah, I would say that's, and some behavioral.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some behavioral stuff. Night terrors.
Yeah.
See some of those. Yeah.
So what do you do for that? I know everybody's different, but what are your general kind of check marks? Like
I start with the gut right away.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll start with kind of healing the gut, getting things moving. So, and that could be like very different things, whether it's like introducing different foods, depends if mom is nursing, introducing things into her diet, really working on her.
Yeah.
And so that the child gets it through her. And then if the child's old enough, like between 2 and 3, then working on the child, just getting their bowels moving first and working on that aspect. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I would say same thing, the microbiome. And then, of course, because I'm a chiropractor, adjusting them will do wonders. I mean, we've seen for years, that's all I did was just adjust these kids and they got better. Yeah. Because it just balanced the nervous system.
Right.
But then the toxic load got so big in our world, I had to branch out and do other things because the toxic load was so high.
Right.
And I even see that now. I have colleagues that will call me up and say, I'm adjusting this 5-year-old kid with anxiety. I just had this the other 5-year-old kid with anxiety. I'm adjusting this child. They're not getting better. What do you recommend? And that's where you really do have to go to the gut. You have to really go to the gut.
Yeah. Well, the gut's everything. I have a 3-year-old that I've been seeing for the last a couple of months. And when he came in, was covered with eczema, like head to toe. Like his skin was flaking off. Like in my head, I was almost like giggling, like he's a gold member, where his skin is just coming off and circles under his eyes, just really not healthy. Like the vitality just wasn't there. I just saw him just last Saturday. Eczema's completely cleared. He's gained weight, height. His moody, there's no moodiness anymore. He's sleeping through the night. The circles are almost gone. There's still a bit there, but completely different turnaround.
Yeah,
just for some basic things. Yeah.
And the medical approach to that is a chemical on top of the skin to try to the skin. That's crazy.
Yeah, and kids heal so quickly. Like their skin turns over so quickly. So it's so easy to treat them, but just knowing what to do, right? And for moms to know that there are other answers out there.
Yes. Yeah. So and I do think the gut is probably for the most part, it's a really easy organ to fix in a younger child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you can, there's a lot of liquids you can get, you can do, we do in my house a lot of like raw kefir waters and things like that. Like there's ways to feed that microbiome from so many,
Absolutely.
And if their taste buds aren't already set in, you can really get them to love the fermented foods. And
yeah. And talking about in those younger years, also food introduction, like how you're actually introducing food is important, and when you're introducing it. I know back, when we were younger, my mom telling me that the doctors would say, okay, after a few weeks to start giving them, the rice cereal in the milk at nighttime. And that was before, it takes 6 months for the digestive system to even start to mature. So if you're giving food before 6 months, we're already creating inflammation from the start. Right. Yeah. Right. So, and knowing what kind of foods, giving them the good fats in the beginning. And, so that's another thing that I do too. I make sure I give them a chart to show them exactly how to introduce foods.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And when you introduce foods, I think another thing that's helpful for people to know is look for any rashes, look for any behavior changes. I figured out really quickly that my daughter didn't do well with sweeter things. I could watch her, she would get so wound up when any kind of sweet food, or if I dropped her off at my parents' house If she got any sugar, she was like a totally different kid.
Yeah.
So those kind of things I think are important that people, as like they go into the toddler years, you can really see what food is doing to your kids.
Yeah,
you can
absolutely.
Really,
yeah.
So, but yeah, slow and wait as long as you can for that introduction of food. I really agree there. So.
Yeah. So what do you think about the years after then? So now they're, introduced to school. And that was funny because I remember being so anxious about my oldest going to preschool because he had never had sugar, no dairy, no gluten. I was like, oh, how is this going to turn out? And he's kind of a different kid. Like he would ask the teacher, oh, teacher, does that have sugar in it? I can't have it. Yeah. But my younger one's completely different. Does it have sugar in it? Sure. Bring it on. So I was quite nervous about him, going out into the world. At that time. So what's the advice that you give to moms?
I think it's really hard once you get it out into the world.
It is.
Yeah, I agree. My kids went to a small private elementary school that was very aware of food. So that was helpful. But and then I really think at that point, it's so important to start the conversation. I mean, we've been talking about food for a long time in my house. My kids really are used to that. So, I think at those age, like, why does Joe, one of the things my daughter said to me at about 6 or 7 is, why do we always eat organic? Can't we just non-organic one time?
Right.
And I was like, because it's, I explained to her the reason. It's toxic. And, well, why does Joey eat organic or eat non-organic?
Right.
Well, Joey's parents don't know any different. So, it's like trying to have those conversations I found were helpful.
Oh, yeah. Mine started a long time ago. And it's funny, I just picked up my youngest from preschool earlier, and they get snack time. So I guess a parent had brought in yogurt. And first thing he said, Mom, it was the good kind. I think it was organic. Even though I knew in my head, I'm sure it wasn't. It was organic, because that's what he calls organic. And I'm pretty sure gas fed too. Like it wasn't now.
How cute is that?
It's pretty cute, but
oh my gosh.
But it's like you said, you just have to have the conversation started really, really young.
They know what
they're so smart.
They're so smart. And what we had so many fights over were those Go-Gurts. Everybody was like slurping those Go-Gurts. And my daughter was like, I want a Go-Gurt. Why can't I have a Go-Gurt? And I'm like, I can't give that to you.
Yeah. Or cheese strings.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I just can't. I'm sorry.
It's just, it is what it is.
Right. The other thing we did in our house that really worked well as the years went on was really, I finally said, in our home, we will eat the best way possible. I want my kids to know what a grass-fed burger tastes like, so that at some point, if they decide to go out with some friends and have a In-N-Out burger, they know the difference between a really healthy tasting meat and crappy meat. So I try, but then when we go out, there comes a point when they're not with you, you can't control them, and you just hope they make smart choices.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that was helpful. Like, they couldn't bring crap. They're not allowed to bring crap in. Like if you're going to eat that, it has to be outside the home.
Yeah, it's the same with our house. Our house is completely clean. And then, yes, when you're at a birthday party, you'll experience what you need to experience. And my oldest did. I remember the first time he actually was like, Mama, can I have the cake? I'm like, okay, you can have some. He didn't eat the whole thing, the whole piece, but he could tell right away too. He's like, oh, my stomach doesn't feel good.
Right.
Yeah. So they get the experience of it, then they learn. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where the conversation comes into play, is if you're talking about it, they know. My daughter's 18 now, and she's told, like, she's intermittent fasting.
Right.
She's going through the TCD for the second time.
Right.
If her stomach doesn't feel well, she will come to me and say, I didn't eat right. I was out with my friends. I didn't eat right. Do you have some enzymes? How can you help me? Like, she knows what to do. And that's what I think is the most important thing for parents to understand, is that you want to educate them that when you launch them into the world, that they know what food make them thrive and what foods don't. And if you're not having those conversations, then then we've got kids that are going out into the world and just eating more crap and getting more toxic and getting more sick.
Yeah.
And that's how we end up with these sick adults.
Yeah. And also I think the parents have to be on board, right? I think what can be scary for some families is they feel like it's a change for the entire system, which sometimes it is, because they will do what we do, right? Not so much what we say, and we can't expect them to continue to do what we're telling them to if we're not also doing the same.
Yeah, we even did that last week. We did the fast mimicking. My husband and I did 5 days of fasting, and then we tried to stay with the kind of guidelines of the fast mimicking diet. Yeah. And my daughter said to us, "What are you guys doing?"
Right.
And I said, "Oh, Dad and I are trying this new kind of fast." And she's like, "Well, what is it?" And it's just cultural conversation in the house, you know?
Oh yeah, even my 3-year-old one day was like, "Are you fasting today?" Dad is fasting. I'm like, yes, we're partial fasting.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's really cool when you to look at it like a process, not like you know, you hear us talk and then you go home and you're like, rip the Go-Gurt out of their mouth. Like, it's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah, imagine your mom in slow motion. No. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It's really about educating yourself and then turning around and educating the family. And small increments. This is why I like going back to the gut. This is why I like the gut, because with the gut, there's so many things you can add in. Like add in the fermented foods, but don't go home and say, okay, we're all going to eat this now. You go home and say, hey, I heard that sauerkraut helps boost your immune system. I'm going to give it a try. Would you like some?
Yeah, exactly.
It can be more loving than going home and just being like point your finger. I think it's really important.
Yeah, really getting them involved. I think that's the key thing. So they feel like they're involved in the decision, and we're not telling them what to do, but they have some sort of say involvement in it, especially as they're getting older, because they're really understanding that. Yeah. So I think go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to say, what do you do when your boys go to like a birthday party and you live in a sugar-free home, but they now go and get exposed to...
So it's mostly the oldest right now, and he's pretty aware. And so when it comes to like snacks and things like that, he'll just get the veggies. He won't eat the other stuff. When it comes to the cake, though, he wants the experience of that. And he's quite good where he will only have a small amount, because he's had the experience of having too much and then not feeling good afterwards. So he'll have a small amount of that. And normally, you know, a lot of birthday parties, it's pizza. He'll have a vegetarian slice. I just make sure I give him Restore. I make sure I really boost up his immune system, work on his gut. And that's one meal on that one day. And I know what he's going to be getting at home for dinner or whatever is going to be good. So I try not to create stress around food.
Yes.
Because I was noticing that was happening. Like what happened one day, I went to, maybe I already shared this with you, but I went to go pick him up at school, and one of the other mom's caretakers was giving him one of those cheese strings, and he saw my face. So I was like, because when I saw it, and then he's like, well, you know, they're all eating it. And I'm like, okay, his friends are right there. I don't want to make this a thing, because if I make it a thing, it's going to create a different energy around it. I just want to educate him on, you know, what's good cheese, what's not good cheese. So I just, as we were walking home, I just talked to him about it. I'm like, I'm sorry if I made you feel like I was, you know, talking at you about the food. And maybe you saw my facial expression when I saw that you were eating that, but this is why I want you to eat different kinds of cheese. And I'm like, because he's had the experience of his lungs not feeling well too. I'm like, when you have dairy, your lungs don't feel good. Then you're up at night. Then you have to miss fun things at school. So it comes back to what you're eating. So again, it's like what you said, it's just continual education, and they do get it. Yeah.
And it, you know, the interesting thing is that once they make the connection between how they feel and what they eat, everything becomes a logical consequence. Like I was just listening to you talk, and I was thinking, if I was a kid, you know, it's no fun to be up, and lungs are scary. When you can't breathe, that's scary. So why would I want the cheese thing if I know that's going to happen to me down the road?
Yeah, exactly. Because the other food that he gets, he likes, right? It's not that he's eating sandpaper. Like, he's eating amazing food, and he really enjoys it. So I think that also, like, getting them involved in the process of cooking and, you know, always talking to them and just having healthy conversations around it and not making something that's so stressful. Because for them to, like, have the experiences of going to birthday parties, we don't want to create stress around it, because then there's going to be resentment.
Right.
And that's what we want to
create food issues. And I really agree that that it should be. That's why I finally had to, like, reframe it in my own mind that in the house we were going to be strict, and outside of the house, when I didn't have control, I wasn't going to stress about it, and I wasn't going to give them a hard time about it.
And the other thing that I've actually really taught them too is, you know, there's some treats that can be at birthday parties that we can make at home, but with different ingredients, but still taste good. So I do bake a lot with them, and I'll show them, like, I even make chocolate at home. And, you know, we'll make these little squares where you put, like, cashew butter or almond butter on the bottom, we freeze it, and then we put a drizzle of the chocolate that I made on top. And that'll be, like, you know, once in a while we'll have that as a treat. So they know they still get treats, and they actually like the way it tastes. Yeah, so they know, okay, if I can't have it here, Mom will make something.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's why the conversation is good to have, like, to keep confusing about it, so that you're just, it's like teaching them a language that you have to keep talking it, you have to keep showing it, and then things start to shift. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I've noticed, is that the more light I am about it, but like firm and structured, but not, don't put a lot of yucky emotion on it, the better result that I get from them. So
and going back to, like, the brain health component, you know, like you were talking about, you know, learning disabilities and things like that, things that are showing up in schools now that weren't really around when we were younger. When people don't create that connection between food and how they're going to behave in the classroom, I think that's huge, because if they're, you know, at recess time or at lunchtime eating foods that aren't nourishing their brain, they're going to have this huge sugar spike, and then they're going to have a drop. I mean, that's basic physiology, right? You know, you're going to get a sugar burnout, but we expect them to be on point and ready to learn for those 6 hours a day. And then when they're not doing that, of course, you know, if we think about ourselves as adults, when we're tired, how do we behave? You know, of course, a child's not going to know how to express what's actually going on, and then they're getting labeled with certain things. So it's really, there's such a huge connection between that.
Yeah. And with the learning disabilities, I think that's something you have to really stop and look at. Why do so many people have learning disabilities? Like, why is there such an increase in that? And there's only you know, one big arching idea that we're all exposed to, and that's that we're all in the same environment. You know, we're breathing toxic air, we're eating toxic food, we're getting toxins at our pediatrician, unfortunately, we're getting toxins at our dentist. And so these toxins go up into the brain, and they start to affect how the brain functions. So I think you can look at food, you can look at environment, both of those coming together, I think, are really important for people to see, because what your teacher will tell you, your kid's teacher or the pediatrician will tell you, is that it's genetic. And I think what you and I would both say is, no, it's actually more environmental.
Yeah, that's turning on some genes, possibly.
That's right.
Yeah, I would actually encourage people to watch Michael Moore's documentary, Where to Invade Next. And he goes, Where to Invade Next.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so he goes to, like, Finland, and he goes to France, and he goes to other places to see what their school system is like, and the food that they're getting compared to the food that's, you know, kids are getting exposed to over here. And so when he went to France, you know, of course they're getting these, like, beautiful cheeses, and they're getting like, all this, like, great food. And he shared with the kids, these are young little kids, what, you know, American children are getting fed, and they're like, that's food.
Right.
And the expectation too of, like, the school hours, you know, comparing all that. It's just a really great documentary to watch, just to get different perception. Of, like, the expectations.
The other one that I actually sat down and watched with my kids, and you can find it on YouTube, is Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution.
Food Revolution, that's a good one.
That's really good, because he shows you what's in ice cream, he shows you what's in meat, like crappy chicken nuggets. So those are the kind of things, if you sit with your kids and you watch those, they get it. They did a good job of showing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love when he brings up in his TED Talk, or was it TED Talk? When he brings up the barrel of sugar and shows how much sugar kids are consuming now compared to like years and years ago. Yeah.
So educating yourself along with them, I think, is good. And I think with brain health, another really key thing, you mentioned it, was adding the good fats in. Really a simple thing would be to say, are we eating good fats or are we eating bad fats in our family? And I started working with a woman last week who wants to not just change her health, but change her whole family's health. And she knows nothing about nutrition. And so I was like, okay, the first thing you have to do is change your fats. Yeah. She's got teenagers that have some anxiety. And I was like, we got to change your fats. Like that has to be, don't you think? That has to be
absolutely. Yeah. Actually, I was just working with a teenager a few weeks ago. And so I've been seeing her for a couple of months and saw her a few weeks again. Completely different. And again, simple changes. More fats was number one for her too. And then of course we did some other things, but really, just increasing the fats to actually feed the brain, because they have so much going on.
Much.
Again, I think that's probably getting another hour of talking about like the teens and what's going on with them today, but so much going on. But just that simple change can make a big difference. Yeah.
So you adding, if we were to create like steps for people, I think adding the good fats in, I think adding in things that will feed the microbiome, fermented foods. The other thing that I'm really been kind of geeking out on lately is polyphenol foods, like oils, like seed oils. I think are really important. I love that. Have you tried the Andrea's seed oils?
The pure form, is that the one?
No, it's called Andrea's seed oil.
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, go try it. It's the best. Okay. It's they have a 5 seed oil. And I literally it has coriander in it and seed, and I literally put it in a spoon, and I just drink it out of the spoon. It's so good.
Say the name again. Andrea. Okay.
Andrea's seed oils.
I will look for that.
Your kids will like it too. So now I got my kids just doing a scoop of it every day.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. No, I'll look for that.
Yeah. So change the fats, and then I think work on the microbiome by adding in the fermented foods. And then, another interesting topic to talk about is is it okay to detox kids? So, and what age is okay? So what are your ideas on detoxing kids?
Oh, like I said, I'm starting mine soon.
And how old are
3 and 6.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So I'm starting them pretty young. And I think it's a great idea because, like you said, we are bombarded with toxins, and their world is so different than ours. And we didn't have, the computers, the screens, like these kinds of things that they are now getting even in the classroom. So it's not even that they're just getting toxins from the foods or from the environment, but they're continually getting that exposure from screens and stuff too. So,
And how much would you recommend somebody detox? How often would you, like, if I have a healthy kid, I don't really have a kid that's like, exhibiting any symptoms.
I still do twice a year.
That's what I say.
Yeah, twice a year. And that goes for adults too. I mean, if you're, you're doing well, things are going well, twice a year, you just want to focus on detoxing. Yeah. And I usually do fall and spring.
Yeah, I do. So I do like January because everybody wants to detox then.
Right.
And then I do like September, October. I think if you have it pre-programmed into your year, you have a tendency to kind of go, oh, it's January, I'm supposed to detox.
Yeah, and do it as a family.
Yeah, and then do it as a family.
So everyone's doing it at the same time. Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah. And then, as you're getting, more educated and more aware, you just like your daily life is you're basically detoxing by the foods you're eating, right? You're eating all the greens, you're eating all the good stuff. So you're constantly detoxing, but these are more focused. And you're binding things, and so I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So eating fats, repairing the microbiome,
detoxing
regularly.
Yeah, and education.
I
think getting the conversation going. I think those are like key in working with kids.
Yeah. And then I think I'll add this one in too, because like I said, I'm preparing to give a talk to a bunch of teens. I mean, it's actually parents and their teens. I'm bringing them both together. And I told parents, bring people, if you have a kid that's in middle school, that's actually the time I'd really like to talk to them. Because what I'm seeing is that if you're thoughtful about this from a nutrition and a detox level, and before your kid goes into high school, you have a nutrition and detox plan, you can really make those high school years so much better for them. But what we're seeing in our area, and I don't know if it's by you too, is that kids their brains are so toxic by the time they get to high school, and then you put them in this pressure cooker. And now they're suicidal, their anxiety is through the roof. Like, that's where the new epidemic of really sick kids is coming. And it's really a toxicity issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it's gotten younger, because before you would hear a lot about university, like a lot of universities students going through the anxiety and suicide and all that. But now it's gone to high school. So everything's kind of shifted from before. So I do see that a lot. And most of the, teens that are coming in here, there's anxiety for sure that they're dealing with. And I do, and like you said, once we start, doing the good fats, the microbiome, we start changing that, and mindset, expectations of oneself. So there's that aspect of it too, definitely. But once you start doing that, their whole response to the world starts to shift.
Yeah. And just helping them see, what I find with teenagers is that you got to find what they're motivated. So a lot of times they're motivated by their skin. So showing them, like, I remember my daughter was dating this guy who had really bad skin, and he was just a lovely, lovely kid. And he would come and sit at our house all the time and ask for a glass of milk. And I was like, well, we don't really have milk at our house. And after a while, he would ask, why don't we have milk? And I started to educate him. Well, he went back to his house and he told his mom, I'm not going to drink milk anymore. The minute he got off milk, his skin completely cleared up. Yeah. And now he stays off milk because he understood the power.
The connection. Yeah. It's just all about planting seeds. Yeah.
So the teens can actually be kind of cool to work with, because you can find the leverage you need. What is, if they're an athlete, well, maybe, like my son started to get headaches, and we figured out he was deficient in magnesium. Well, I could never get him to take supplements before that. But then once I figured that out, now he's taking his supplements every night because he doesn't want a headache.
Yeah, totally.
So it can be easier like that.
Oh, absolutely. And like we said, kids, they heal so quickly. Teens do too, because once they get it, they really get it.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I, people kind of roll their eyes at the teen years, but I do think that I know you said you work with teens. Like, I love working with that age group. If you give them the tools to take better care of their health, and you show them the power that has on their life, there's like a form of independence, which is what they're craving already. There's that form of independence that shows up.
Yeah, and you're giving them a different education that's empowering them, because everything else that they're doing right now is kind of like, they're jumping through hoops a lot of the times. But this is something that's going to help them, like, create a foundation for the rest of their lives. And when they really get that, they're really on board.
Right. And for me, I think the greatest gift we can do when we send our kids off to college is to have some awareness around what does it mean to eat well, and what does that impact have on your health. And I think that is such a powerful message that it has to start. The earlier you start it, the more you talk it, you'll launch them into the world with a great sense of what they should be doing. Yeah. So
what you're doing, right?
Yeah. Well, it's fun. My daughter said to me last night, is it normal to have mini fridges in dorm rooms? And I said, yeah, probably in this day and age, I'm sure it is. Right. But we've made it really clear that we will always make sure that she has access. Well, I'm like, I will send you good food. I will come and buy good food. Like, I am not going to let you go without good food. Yeah. And then she figured out on her own that if she starts intermittent fasting now, that's one less dorm meal she would have to have.
Yeah. Perfect. And you save money. Yeah.
I'm like, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So good.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, this was awesome.
This was fun. Yeah.
I really think we should chat about this more because
there's so much more.
Yeah, and there's a lot that as moms start to learn. For I think it's natural as a mom when you learn about where your health has gotten off track.
Yeah.
You naturally turn around and look at your child and go, "Oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's going on for you."
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Empowering is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love it. And I love, this is my favorite thing to talk about.
I know. Me too. Me too. I hear it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, next week we should have Caitlin back with us.
Yes.
And I really am excited to talk about dental care because that's another one that I really want to hear. I think we should talk more about.
Yeah, and again, we can relate it to the kids because it starts at a young age, right? Yeah. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week.
Okay. Chat with you later.
Yes.
Bye.